Flames climbed across the royal capital, lighting the black clouds with a dull red glow. Once the city of Linara had been a shining symbol of beauty and progress, its silver towers touching the sky. Now smoke replaced light, and the streets were filled with frightened citizens running for shelter. At the highest tower of the royal citadel stood Queen Elira of Velrath, only 21 years old, yet the weight of an entire world rested on her shoulders. Her long silver hair was tied back in a war braid, her golden armor scuffed and cracked from battle. Behind her, alarms screamed, echoing through the command chamber. The floor shook as another explosion struck somewhere near the outer defense grid. "Your Majesty," cried Commander Ralvek, her oldest military officer. "The Dominion has broken through the northern sky wall. Their warships are landing troops outside the capital." Elira turned toward him, her blue eyes steady though her heart raced. "How many ships remain in our fleet?" "Less than 20, Majesty. We had 200 before the siege began." His voice cracked. "We cannot win this battle. We must evacuate you now." Elira's jaw tightened. She walked to the great window, watching the horizon burn. The Karn Dominion, a ruthless alien empire, had swept across the stars like a storm, conquering every planet in its path. Now they had come for Velrath, a world rich with rare crystals and ancient knowledge. Her people had fought bravely for weeks, but bravery was not enough against the Dominion's massive fleets. "I will not abandon my world," Elira said firmly. Her voice carried quiet strength. "If Velrath falls, I fall with it." The officers exchanged desperate looks. Commander Ralvek stepped forward. "Majesty, you must reconsider. If the Dominion captures you, they will enslave your people. You must survive to lead a future resistance." But Elira did not move. A queen does not flee when her people bleed. Her communications officer, a young Velrathian named Leary, raised her trembling voice. "Majesty, the Dominion is jamming most channels. Our distress signals cannot reach the nearby colonies." "No one can hear us." "Then send the signal farther," Elira ordered. "Send it beyond our sector. Send it to every open frequency in the galaxy." Leary hesitated. "Majesty, that may reach anyone." "Pirates, scavengers, let it," Elira interrupted. "If even one soul out there hears our cry, then hope still lives." The officer nodded and began typing commands into the console. Across the control room, technicians worked with shaking hands. Many of them knew this would be their final duty. The power dimmed for a moment as the planetary transmitter reactivated. Static filled the air. Then Elira stepped forward, standing before the projection unit. "Record," she said. A small red light blinked. She took a breath and began to speak. "This is Queen Elira of Velrath. Our world is under siege by the Karn Dominion. Our fleets are destroyed, our defenses broken. We are alone, and running out of time." She paused, her voice faltering for the first time. The faces of her people flashed in her mind. Families hiding in bunkers, soldiers standing in burning streets, children clutching their parents. "If anyone can hear this message," she continued softly, "we plead for aid. We ask not for conquest or riches, only for survival. Velrath stands on the edge of extinction." Her final words came from deep within her heart. "To any who still believe in honor and hope, please help us." The recording ended. The signal was sent. It traveled through space, passing shattered satellites and broken stations, disappearing into the endless dark. In the silence that followed, Elira lowered her head. For the first time, her hands trembled slightly. "Majesty," whispered Commander Ralvek, "even if someone receives it, it will take weeks for help to arrive." Elira nodded. "Then we must survive those weeks." Suddenly, the citadel trembled violently. A deep rumble echoed across the city as the Dominion's main cannon struck the defense grid. The walls cracked and sparks rained down from the ceiling. "Power levels dropping," shouted Leary. "We're losing the shield barrier. Get everyone underground." Ralvek ordered. "No," said Elira. "We hold this palace until the last moment. It is the heart of Velrath. If it falls, our people's hope dies with it." She lifted her staff, the royal crest glowing faintly. Around her, soldiers stood taller, their fear replaced by determination. Even as the city burned, their queen stood unbroken. Outside, Dominion dropships began landing near the capital, releasing waves of armored soldiers. The streets turned into battlefields once more. Hours passed. The defenders fought fiercely, but their numbers kept shrinking. The skies flashed with plasma fire, and the once green fields turned black from explosions. High above the chaos, the distress signal from Velrath continued to travel through the void. It passed through silent star systems, across abandoned relay stations and into the territory of old, forgotten trade routes. Days later, far from Velrath on a small blue world called Earth, an old satellite picked up a faint transmission. The signal was weak, nearly lost in static, but a group of technicians at the Global Defense Council's Orbital Network Command detected it. At first, they thought it was a glitch. Then they cleaned the audio. The moment they heard the trembling, desperate voice of the alien queen, the room went silent. To any who still believe in honor and hope, please, help us. Lieutenant Sarah Quinn, communications officer, turned to her commander. Sir, that was no human voice. The man in charge, General Marcus Ivers, frowned. Location? Unknown, sir. Signals faint, somewhere beyond our outer colonies. But it's real. He replayed the message again. A young voice, regal yet filled with fear and courage, echoed in the command room. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then General Ivers stood straight. Get me Commander Mason Hale. Minutes later, a tall man with a scar over his left eye entered the room. Hale was a veteran of Earth's Defense Force, one of the few survivors of the Titan Rebellion, known for leading impossible missions. You called for me, General? Hale asked. Ivers gestured to the playback console. Listen to this. Hale listened in silence. When the message ended, he crossed his arms. That's not a trick. That's a real cry for help. From another species, Ivers said quietly. And they're dying. Hale looked out the window at Earth's night sky. Stars glittered like tiny candles in the dark. How far? Unknown. It'll take time to trace, but if we act fast, we might reach them before it's too late. Ivers met his eyes. Earth has been at peace for 30 years. Sending troops beyond our border could break the treaty. Hale's answer was simple. Treaties mean nothing if we ignore those in need. Silence filled the room again. Then Ivers nodded slowly. Then gather them. The best of us. Within hours, Earth's network began to stir. Across continents, messages were sent to elite units, pilots, engineers, and soldiers. A new task force was being formed, one that would leave Earth and travel beyond known space for the first time in decades. Its name, Task Force Valiant. As dawn rose over the Atlantic, the world's strongest warriors prepared to launch. The signal from the young alien queen had reached them, and humanity, as always, had answered the call. The days that followed on Velrath were filled with fire and fear. The once beautiful planet had become a world of ruins. The skies were dark with smoke and the air was heavy with ash. Queen Elira barely slept. Each night she stood by the shattered window of her citadel, watching the distant lights of battle far across the horizon. The Karn Dominion kept pressing forward. They were patient, cruel, and powerful. The Queen's command chamber was now a mix of wounded soldiers and exhausted officers. The air smelled of burnt metal and medicine. Majesty, said Commander Ralvek one morning, his voice heavy, our shield generators are down to 30%. The next attack could destroy the capital completely. Elira turned from the window. And the signal? Leary, the young communication officer, looked up from her console. It is still transmitting, Majesty. But there has been no reply. The Queen nodded slowly. Deep inside, she had stopped hoping. The message had been sent into endless space, and she doubted anyone had heard it. Still, she refused to show fear. We will hold, she said simply. Hours later, the Dominion fleet appeared in the upper atmosphere. The sky turned red as their massive warships began to descend. The city trembled. Enemy landing craft incoming, shouted one officer. Ground troops approaching Sector 7. The Queen took her staff and walked toward the defense balcony. Her guards tried to stop her, but she lifted a hand. My people must see that their queen does not hide. She stepped into the open. The air was thick with smoke, and the sound of explosions filled her ears. In the distance, she could see the glowing engines of enemy ships descending. Velrath was dying. And then, something strange happened. The battle sensors, almost broken from overuse, suddenly began to flash. Unknown energy signatures appeared high above the atmosphere. Dozens of signals, fast-moving, sharp, controlled. Leary's eyes widened. Majesty. There are new ships entering orbit. Ralvek leaned over her shoulder. Dominion reinforcements? She shook her head. No, their design does not match any known Dominion vessels. Elira's heart began to race. Put them on screen. The main display flickered to life, showing the upper atmosphere. The dark space above Velrath rippled as dozens of ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel. They were sleek, black, and angular, not like any alien ships she had seen before. They moved in perfect formation, their hulls glowing with faint blue light. A voice suddenly echoed through every open communication channel, clear and calm. "This is Commander Mason Hale of Earth. We received your signal, Queen Illyra. You are not alone anymore." Every Velrathian in the command chamber froze. Illyra whispered almost to herself. "Earth?" Commander Ralvek frowned. "I have never heard of such a world." Before anyone could reply, the unknown ships began to deploy. Small crafts detached from their hangars, speeding toward the Dominion fleet. In space, the battle changed instantly. The Dominion ships, powerful and arrogant, opened fire first. But the human ships responded with speed no one expected. They moved like lightning, dodging plasma bolts and returning fire with precise, brutal power. From orbit, the people of Velrath saw bright lines streak across the sky, the trails of railgun rounds, tearing through the clouds. Each round struck a Dominion cruiser with thunderous force, breaking the enemy's shields in seconds. Within minutes, 5 enemy warships were destroyed. In the control room, Velrathian officers gasped in disbelief. "They are winning," one whispered. Queen Illyra stood frozen, her hands trembling slightly. "Who are these humans?" Below, the streets of the capital city shook again, but this time it was not from Dominion fire. Dropships, small silver vessels, and were entering the atmosphere. "Majesty," Leary shouted. "They're landing near the southern district." "Not enemy ships, Allied transports." Illyra's eyes widened. "Allied?" Moments later, the palace's defense sensors picked up strange signals. Biological readings, but not Velrathian. On the burning streets, human marines in heavy armor marched through the ruins. They moved with discipline and calm precision. Each step was firm, their weapons glowing faint blue. Their helmets reflected firelight as they advanced through the smoke. They spoke in short, clear commands through comms, protecting the wounded Velrathian civilians they found. To the defenders hiding in bunkers, they looked like walking legends, tall figures of light emerging from the dark. At the same time, human medics rushed to help injured soldiers. Engineers repaired broken defense turrets using compact tools. The humans seemed to understand the systems quickly, adapting faster than anyone imagined possible. Back in the Citadel, a message came through the communications link. "This is Commander Mason Hale. Request permission to meet the Queen of Velrath." Queen Illyra's eyes widened. She turned to Leary. "Tell him, yes, he will be received in the Royal Hall." Minutes later, a small human shuttle landed outside the palace. The smoke cleared, revealing a man stepping out in a gray exosuit marked with the symbol of Earth, a blue globe surrounded by stars. He removed his helmet, revealing a scarred but steady face, with sharp gray eyes that seemed to measure everything. Queen Illyra descended the palace stairs, her guards surrounding her. When their eyes met, both paused for a moment. Hale gave a respectful bow. "Your Majesty, I am Commander Mason Hale, leader of Task Force Valiant. We received your distress signal. Earth has sent us to assist." Illyra looked at him, still unsure. "You crossed the stars. For us?" Hale nodded. "Yes, ma'am. Humanity doesn't turn away from those in need." For a moment, silence hung between them, the smoke of war around them, the faint roar of distant battles echoing above. Then Illyra spoke softly. "You arrived when we had lost hope." Hale smiled slightly. "Hope never dies, Your Majesty. It just waits for someone to bring it back." That evening, the humans and Velrathians fought side by side for the first time. The combined forces struck back against the Dominion troops across the capital. Human snipers provided cover from rooftops while Velrathian soldiers advanced with renewed courage. Tanks and drones from Earth unleashed precise strikes, turning once hopeless defenses into strongholds. Everywhere, the Dominion began to retreat. Their commanders were unprepared for such organized resistance and completely shocked by the strength of the newcomers. By nightfall, the capital was still standing. Fires burned, but they were no longer the fires of defeat. In the royal command room, Illyra stood beside Commander Hale, watching the holographic map of the battlefield. The red marks of the Dominion forces were shrinking fast. Ralvek approached. "Majesty, the Dominion fleet is pulling back into orbit." "They are retreating!" Cheers erupted across the chamber. Velrathian officers shouted in relief, some even crying. Elira looked at Hale. "You saved us." He shook his head. "Not yet. The Dominion doesn't give up easily. This was only a scouting force. Their full fleet will come soon, and in greater numbers." Elira frowned. "Then what do we do?" Hale looked at the burning horizon, his expression firm. "We prepare. You have people worth fighting for, Queen Elira. So do we. Together we'll show the galaxy that humanity and Velrath stand united." As the sun rose the next morning, the smoke began to clear from the skies. For the first time in weeks, the people of Velrath saw light again, and with it hope. In the distance, human warships orbited the planet like silent guardians. Their presence sent a message across the stars. Humanity had arrived. And they were ready to fight for more than just themselves. Velrath's capital still smoked from battle, but for the first time in weeks the fires were cooling. Human and Velrathian soldiers walked side by side through the ruined streets, helping the wounded and repairing the defense walls. Children peeked out from behind broken doorways to stare at the humans in their shining armor. They whispered to each other, pointing at the strange tall warriors who had come from the stars. To them, the humans looked like beings from an ancient legend, fearless, calm and strong. Inside the royal citadel, Queen Elira stood beside Commander Mason Hale, watching the rebuilding efforts from the balcony. The smell of smoke still filled the air, but her heart felt lighter. "Your soldiers work fast," she said quietly. "Even our engineers are amazed at their machines." Hale nodded, his eyes scanning the horizon. "We've learned to rebuild quickly, Your Majesty. On Earth, sometimes survival depends on speed." Elira turned to him, curiosity in her voice. "Your world must be harsh." Hale gave a small smile. "It can be. But hardship made us strong. Every scar on Earth taught us how to fight, how to adapt, how to endure." The young queen studied him carefully. His uniform was torn from battle, his face marked with old scars. Yet his voice carried calm strength, the kind that came only from those who had already faced the worst. She realized that these humans were not driven by pride or conquest. They fought because they believed it was right. Commander Ralvik entered the room holding a datapad. "Majesty, Commander Hale, we finished analyzing the Dominion's remaining forces." He placed the holographic display on the table. Red lights marked enemy positions in orbit. Their main fleet hasn't returned yet. But we intercepted messages from their command base. They're regrouping. "How many ships?" Hale asked. 200 at least, Ralvik said grimly. "The next attack will be far worse." The room fell silent. Elira looked at Hale. "Can your people fight such a fleet?" Hale thought for a moment. "Not alone. Our numbers are limited. But if we combine your knowledge of the terrain and our technology, we might have a chance." The Queen nodded slowly. "Then we plan together." That night, the Royal Council gathered for the first joint meeting between humans and Velrathians. The great map of the planet glowed in the center of the room. Human officers sat beside alien generals, trading ideas and technology. One human engineer, Lieutenant Sarah Quinn, explained the new shield design to the Velrathian scientists. Using human reactors, they could boost the palace's energy barriers threefold. Meanwhile, Velrathian commanders shared star charts and enemy movement data from their old archives. The collaboration was unlike anything either species had seen before. For days, the palace became a hive of activity. Humans trained local soldiers in tactical formation. Velrathian engineers helped repair human ships damaged in the first battle. And through it all, Elira and Hale worked together, their respect for each other growing with each passing hour. One evening, while reviewing defense plans, the Queen asked softly, "Tell me, Commander, what drives your people to risk so much for strangers?" Hale looked at her. "Because once we were alone too. Long ago, Earth fought wars and faced darkness. No one came to help us. We survived because we learned to stand together. Now if we can stop others from suffering what we did, that's reason enough." Elira was silent for a moment. Then she smiled faintly. "You make it sound simple." "It's not," Hale said. "But it's right." Their conversation was interrupted by an alarm. The room's lights flashed red. A voice came over the comms. "Incoming transmission from deep space. Dominion signal detected." Everyone turned to the main screen. The Dominion's emblem, a black serpent around a burning star, appeared. Then the image of a towering alien admiral filled the display. His eyes glowed with cold cruelty. "To the Queen of Velrath," the admiral sneered, "and the unknown species that dares defend her, your resistance is meaningless. Our armada is already on its way. When we arrive, there will be no mercy." The transmission ended abruptly. A heavy silence followed. Hale clenched his fists. "So they know we're here." Elira straightened her shoulders. "Let them come. This time we will not run." Ralvek looked worried. "Majesty, we need time to prepare. We can't face 200 ships." Hale turned toward the room. "Then we make them fight on our terms." The humans and Velrathians listened as Hale outlined a plan. They would lure the Dominion fleet into a narrow orbit near Velrath's moon, where gravity would slow their movements. Human railguns could strike from hidden positions on the moon's surface, while Velrathian stealth ships attacked from behind. It was a risky plan, but one that could even the odds. Over the next few days, both armies prepared. Human engineers installed shield amplifiers on Velrathian cruisers. Velrathian scientists adapted their cloaking technology for human fighters. Every day, the Queen visited the troops, offering encouragement. Her people had once been afraid, but now they stood taller, inspired by the humans who fought beside them. Children painted the symbol of Earth, a blue circle with stars, next to the royal crest of Velrath on city walls. Hope had returned. The day before the battle, Elira walked alone to the edge of the royal garden. The sky above was filled with human and Velrathian ships preparing for launch. Commander Hale joined her quietly. "You should rest, Your Majesty." "I can't," she said softly. "When I close my eyes, I see my people suffering. I hear their cries. I cannot rest until Velrath is free." Hale nodded. "Then you fight not as a ruler, but as one of them." She looked at him. "And you, Commander? Why do you fight?" He smiled slightly. "Because I've seen what happens when good people do nothing. That's not the kind of human I want to be." For a long moment, they stood together in silence, watching the stars. Suddenly, the comm unit on Hale's wrist beeped. "Commander?" came Lieutenant Quinn's voice. "Long-range sensors just picked up the Dominion Armada. Estimated arrival in 12 hours. Elira's eyes hardened. "So it begins." "Let's be ready for them," Hale said. As the hours passed, Velrath's cities darkened their lights. The human warships took formation above the planet, their hulls gleaming faintly in the starlight. From orbit, Earth ships looked small compared to the massive Dominion Armada approaching from the void, but each one carried warriors who refused to surrender. Inside the ECS Resolute, Commander Hale stood before his troops. "Listen up," he said, his voice echoing through the chamber. "We came here because someone asked for help. We're not leaving until they're safe. The Dominion thinks we're weak because we're human. Let's show them what humanity really means." The soldiers shouted in unison, their voices fierce and proud. Down on the planet, Queen Elira addressed her own army. Her voice carried through the comms across every defense post, every bunker, every ship. "My people, the darkness returns. But this time we are not alone. The humans stand with us, and not for power, not for gain, but for honor. Fight beside them. Fight for our world. Fight for tomorrow." Her words lit a fire in every heart. As the last hour before battle approached, the skies of Velrath glowed with the light of ships preparing to defend their home. The Dominion fleet appeared as a wall of darkness on the scanners, hundreds of massive ships, their weapons already charged. Commander Hale looked at the incoming data and whispered to himself, "Well, Queen, let's make history." From the Citadel balcony, Queen Elira looked to the heavens and murmured, "May the stars remember this day." And high above, the human fleet began to move, silently, swiftly be into position. The final battle for Velrath was about to begin. The battle for the Valoran system had entered its darkest hour. Flames burned across the orbit of the royal world, Nathra Prime, where once bright rings of light now twisted with smoke and wreckage. The young queen, Serenia, stood inside the royal command dome, watching her empire crumble under the relentless advance of the Kragan swarm. "Your Majesty," said Commander Vale, his voice weary but steady, "our shield grid has failed in the northern hemisphere. The Kragan fleet will strike there next." Serenia turned to him, her silver eyes dim with exhaustion. "And the humans? Where are they?" "They fight." "Still," he said, almost amazed. "But I do not understand how." Their ships are too few, their weapons primitive by our standards, yet they keep holding the line. She stared at the hologram in disbelief. A dozen human warships floated against a swarm of thousands. Even now, the flagship Horizon's Wrath, led by Captain Elias Ward, stood like a burning spear among shadows. On the comm screen, Elias's voice crackled through static. Queen Serenia, this is Horizon's Wrath. Tell your people to pull back behind our defense line. We'll buy you time. Serenia froze. Buy us time? Captain, your ships cannot survive much longer. We don't plan to survive, Elias replied calmly. We plan to win. The comm went silent. Out in space, the human fleet formed a thin wall of metal and fire. The Kragan ships, massive and alive with tendrils of red energy, closed in from all directions. But every time they moved, human ships countered with precision, their cannons lighting up the void. On the bridge of Horizon's Wrath, Captain Elias stood tall. The crew worked frantically. Lieutenant Chen, Navigator Ruiz, and Tactical Officer Darnell, all exhausted, yet unbroken. Captain, said Darnell, the Kragan mothership is charging its main cannon. It'll tear us apart, Elias nodded. Then we hit them first. The humans launched their final gambit. They fired nuclear lances, ancient weapons re-engineered by human ingenuity, and the void exploded in blue fire. Several Kragan ships disintegrated and the rest recoiled in confusion, but the mothership survived. Sir, said Chen, eyes wide. The mothership is still operational. Elias stared at the screen. The Kragan flagship loomed large, a dark, pulsating creature of metal and flesh. Then we go closer, he said quietly. Arm the kinetic drives. Tell all ships, prepare for ramming course. The bridge went silent. Sir, Ruiz whispered, that's suicide. I know, Elias said, but if we fall here, Earth falls next, and I won't let that happen. On Nathra Prime, Serenia watched the human ships advance. One by one, they glowed like stars before disappearing into the swarm. The Queen felt her heart twist. She had seen warriors before, but never like this. These humans didn't fight for conquest or glory, they fought for others. Open a channel, she ordered. Her signal reached the Horizon's Wrath just as the human ship began its final run. Elias's face appeared, illuminated by the light of burning plasma. Captain Ward, she said softly. Please, you've done enough. Pull back, Elias smiled faintly. Your Majesty, when humans promise to protect, we keep our word. Serenia's voice broke. You'll die! Maybe, he said, glancing at his crew. But if we die free, we've already won. The channel ended. Moments later, the Horizon's Wrath broke formation and charged straight toward the Kragan mothership. Smaller human ships followed, forming a spearhead. The alien swarm opened fire, filling space with red lightning, but the humans didn't stop. Elias, shouted Darnell. They're targeting us. Good, Elias said, gripping the console. That means they're afraid. The human fleet slammed into the Kragan formation. Explosions lit up the dark like a second sunrise. Human Marines boarded enemy vessels using emergency pods, fighting hand-to-hand inside metallic tunnels filled with smoke and alien screams. At the same time, Elias ordered his ship's reactor to overload. Captain, Chen said quietly, if we do this, there's no coming back. I know, he replied, his voice steady. Tell Earth. Tell them humanity stood its ground. In the Royal Command Dome, Serenia watched the final signal from Horizon's Wrath. It was a short message, only 3 words, for all worlds. Then the screen went white. The explosion that followed shattered. Half the Kragan fleet, the mothership split apart in a storm of burning plasma. The shockwave sent the rest scattering into deep space. Silence followed. Commander Vale turned slowly toward the Queen. They did it, he whispered. By the stars, they did it. Serenia's hands trembled. Her people wept, not just for survival, but for the humans who had given everything to protect a world not their own. Prepare the search teams, she said softly. Find survivors. Bring them home. Days later, the wreckage of Horizon's Wrath was found drifting among the ruins of the Kragan fleet. Among the broken metal and silent bodies, the rescue team found one life pod, its beacon barely blinking. When the pod opened, it revealed Captain Elias Ward, alive, though burned and wounded. His eyes opened weakly to the sight of Queen Serenia kneeling beside him. You, he whispered, you made it. Serenia nodded, her eyes wet. Because of you. He tried to smile but couldn't. Then humanity did its job. She reached out and took his hand. No, Captain. Humanity did more than that. You reminded the galaxy what true courage means. He faintly laughed. Then tell them. We'll be back. And with that he fell unconscious as medics rushed in. Word of the battle spread fast. Across the galaxy, countless species heard how a small human fleet, outnumbered, outgunned, had stood against an empire of monsters and won. To many alien worlds, humans became a legend, the warriors of Earth, protectors of those who could not defend themselves. And for Queen Serenia, the memory of those who fought for her people became sacred. She ordered a monument built from the wreckage of human ships, a towering structure that reached toward the stars. At the top, inscribed in both alien and human language, were the same three words that had echoed across the void: for all worlds. Smoke still rose from the shattered cities, and the once brilliant capital of Linara looked like a memory of what it had been. But despite the ruin, the people of Velrath celebrated. Their planet had survived, their queen had survived, and the humans, the strangers who had crossed the stars to help them, had survived too. Queen Illyra walked through the streets alongside her commanders, observing her people rebuilding homes, hospitals, and schools. For the first time in weeks, children laughed openly in the sun, chasing small robots left behind by human engineers. Commander Ralvek fell into step beside her. Your Majesty, the people are asking, who are these humans? Illyra smiled faintly. They are warriors, she said, but more than that. They fight for what is right, not for glory or reward. They saved our world because they believed it should be saved. Behind them, human soldiers moved among the Velrathian people, helping rebuild homes and repairing damaged ships. Every day, the bond between humans and Velrathians grew stronger. In the royal palace, Illyra visited the medical wing where human and Velrathian medics worked side by side. She approached a small pod where Commander Mason Hale was recovering. His uniform was torn, and his body bore burns and bruises, but his eyes opened as she entered. Queen Illyra, he said weakly, offering a faint smile. You look better than the city. She laughed softly. We are rebuilding. Thanks to you, Hale coughed slightly. I only did my duty. Humanity does not ignore a cry for help. She placed a hand gently on his. Your duty changed our world. It reminded all of us what courage looks like. For a long moment, they sat in silence, sharing a quiet respect that no words could fully capture. Outside the palace, the leaders of Velrath and humans gathered in the grand hall to discuss the future. Holographic maps of the galaxy glowed above the council table. They showed worlds conquered by the Karn Dominion, and others that remained free. Illyra turned to Hale. Commander, our people owe you and your warriors more than words can say. But the galaxy is vast. There are others still in danger. Will your people help them too? Hale's eyes were steady. We cannot save every world alone, but we can show that help exists, that some species will not stand by while others suffer. That is enough for hope to spread. Ralvik nodded. Then we form an alliance? Yes, Illyra said, her voice firm. Not a military empire, not a domination, but a network of worlds that protect each other, where strength is used to defend, not destroy. It was a revolutionary idea, and the humans agreed immediately. Humanity had seen countless wars on Earth, and they knew the value of unity. In the following weeks, Velrath became a hub of reconstruction. Human engineers helped repair the capital's defenses, and Velrathian scientists adapted human technology for planetary use. Together they designed new energy shields, improved spacecraft, and even began training a new generation of warriors, half Velrathian, half taught in human strategy. Queen Illyra often walked among the people, speaking with children, soldiers, and engineers alike. She learned about Earth's history from Hale and his officers, about how humanity had faced impossible odds and survived, not because of raw strength, but because of determination, creativity, and courage. I see now why your species is admired, she told Hale one evening. You do not fear hardship. You rise above it. Hale smiled softly. It is not that we are fearless, Your Majesty. We simply refuse to fail when others are counting on us. Illyra studied him, realizing something important. Perhaps that is the lesson my people needed. Courage does not come from power alone. It comes from will. News of the humans' actions spread across the galaxy. Other worlds, once conquered or left in despair, heard the story of Velrath's salvation. Across countless star systems, the legend grew. A young alien queen had survived, not alone, but with the help of humans, strangers who had risked everything to protect another species. Envoys began arriving at Velrath from distant planets, seeking guidance, technology, and the knowledge of the Alliance. The galaxy, which had once believed itself ruled only by power and fear, now had a new example, that bravery, determination, and honor could change the outcome of war. Back in the rebuilt Grand Hall, Queen Elira addressed the assembly of leaders and humans. Her voice was clear, calm, and strong. "We have seen what can happen when one species stands alone. We have seen what can happen when courage and hope are combined. Let our alliance be a light for the galaxy. Let it remind all that even the smallest call for help can reach those who will answer. Let humanity's example guide us, and let us never forget that together we are stronger." The council erupted in applause. For Elira, it was a moment of pride unlike any other, not for herself but for her people, and for the humans who had risked everything for strangers. In the weeks that followed, Commander Hale fully recovered. He refused all honors or titles. "I did what anyone would do," he said simply, when faced with a world asking for help. Yet the people of Velrath insisted on recognizing his efforts. A massive ceremony was held in the capital city. The streets were filled with cheering crowds. Children waved banners showing the symbols of both Velrath and Earth. Hale stood beside Elira as she placed a medal of honor around his neck. "You have reminded us what hope means," she said softly. "We owe you everything," he nodded. "No, Your Majesty. We only reminded you of what your people already had. Courage does not belong to one species. It belongs to anyone who stands for what is right." For the first time, Hale allowed himself to feel the pride of humanity, not in power or conquest, but in making a difference, in inspiring others to stand and fight for freedom. The Alliance of Worlds began to expand. Velrath and Earth shared technology, defense strategies, and knowledge. They trained officers together, sharing ideas that had never existed before in the galaxy. Queen Elira and Commander Hale often stood on the balcony of the newly rebuilt palace, watching the stars. Ships of both human and Velrathian design moved in formation across orbit, practicing maneuvers, preparing for a future that promised challenges, but also hope. "Do you think the Dominion will return?" Elira asked quietly. Hale looked up at the stars. "They might, but next time they will not find us unprepared. They will find a galaxy united, and that will be their greatest surprise." The Queen smiled. "And my people will never forget that humans answered our call." "Neither will we," Hale said. "Neither will we." In the months that followed, the story of Velrath and Earth became known across countless star systems. Worlds that had lost hope began sending messages, hoping for guidance or protection. And slowly, a network of allied planets began to form, not ruled by a single empire, but bound together by trust, courage, and mutual respect. Queen Elira's people flourished again. Children played under the rebuilt towers, soldiers trained in the art of strategy and honor, and scientists worked alongside humans to explore new forms of energy and faster-than-light travel. The humans eventually prepared to return to Earth. But the bond they had forged with Velrath remained unbroken. Commander Hale promised that if ever Velrath called again, humanity would answer without hesitation. The Queen sent the humans off with a gift, a crystal monument inscribed with both Velrathian and human symbols. At its base were the words that would echo through history, "For all worlds." As the last human ships disappeared into the stars, Elira watched the horizon, feeling hope swell in her chest. The galaxy was no longer a place ruled by fear. A new light had risen, and it would shine far beyond the reaches of Velrath. And in every corner of the universe, those who had once felt helpless learned that even in the darkest hour, courage, honor, and determination could change everything. The young queen looked at the stars one last time. Humanity had answered the call, and together they had shaped a new legacy.